Well, hello students. I wanted to share with you a little bit about this next course that I'm teaching in leadership, which is basically leadership in a global environment. What does that all mean? Well, for many of you that have taken my course already in Discovering the Leader in You, you know that the leader from within needs to be developed, traits need to be established, and then you take off from there as a leader. We had many fine guest speakers that gave you their perspective of leadership. And what I want to tell you is that this next course brings us to the next level. That's you taking your particular leadership traits and then expounding on them with mentoring, coaching, leading others. And there's going to be a lot of theory in this particular course. Although it is online, the theory will apply to the practical. So we'll be able to get the chapters in the book and apply those chapters to some of the leaders that I've interviewed that actually use a lot of the things that you're going to study. In other words, we're taking the theory and applying it to the practical. So let me tell you essentially how the course pans out. We are going to have, in the first part of the course, we're going to have basically an introduction on looking at leadership at different levels, and we're going to go into some of the theories of leadership. And then we're going to talk about the first part of the nitty-gritty of the course, which will encompass chapters 1 through 5. And that will be to outline and assess the building blocks of leadership and some of the foundation theories around those building blocks. Chapter 1 talks about the definition and significance of leadership. Chapter 2, we're going to be looking at the global and cultural context of leadership. That is, how do we look at leadership in a global sense when we're looking at a lot of different cultures around the world, and not everyone does things here the way we do. They lead differently, they act differently, and we have to be able to understand what it means to be globally involved despite the venue of your company. Then the third chapter is essentially going to look at the foundations of modern leadership. What do we mean by that? Then, now we go back to, when we talked about discovering the leader in us, what are some of the differences and traits in certain types of leaders? We're going to look at a lot of different leaders and what they do to be successful in whatever field that they belong in. Then we're going to talk about a really important thing in the next chapter. We're going to talk about power. Leadership and power often go together, but a lot of times people use leadership in order to exasperate their power, and the other way around. Some people have a lot of power and use their leadership for the right and wrong reasons. We're going to study that. Part 2 of the course is going to go into, and that would be chapter 6 and 7, some of the contemporary concepts of leadership. And we're going to look at some of the present theories and that dominate the field of leadership. We're going to be looking at charismatic and transformational and obviously authentic leadership. And we're going to be looking at leadership in nonprofit organizations. Interesting, right? Chapters 6 and 7 are going to be talking about the current era in leadership and people who are inspired not just to lead but also to follow so that they can become the next leaders. Mentoring and learning going together. Then finally, chapter 7, we're going to be looking at nonprofit leadership in a little bit more detail. So with the guest speakers and all of these great chapters, we're going to bring that leadership to another level from a global perspective. So if you're interested in registering for this course, I would certainly look at this video and get some of the ideas of where it's leading. It's totally online. We'll do it in 8 weeks. There isn't a lot of writing. Most of the class is going to be based on discussion threads back and forth. And what I mean by that is the concepts that we are learning in the class, you will be graded on how you interact with the class and what you're taking away from the theory to the practical, okay? So you're only going to have 2 papers. There's no final, but 2 comprehensive papers within the 8 weeks. And honestly, every day has a particular folder, and all the work you need to do for that day is in the folder. There's a reading, listening, and viewing section where you'll get all of the theory in the class and for that day. And then there will be the threaded discussions, which will be in your learning activities folder, all in the same day, each day. Learning activities, reading, listening, and viewing. So there's no way, excuse the language, you can screw it up. It's very straightforward. It's just keeping up with it, and I'm essentially only asking each person that is registered for this course, who's taken the course, to give me 2 paragraphs for each threaded discussion. There are only 4 each week, and there's 8 weeks, so there's 32. And a couple of papers, 5 or 6 paragraphs. That's it. But the rest of it is learning, interacting with one another, and I'm sure you will like how this all pans out. So it's online. It's a great takeaway. I bring some really, I think, very influential leaders into focus for you, and you should enjoy the course. Well, that's my spiel, and if you got any questions, you can always text or call me. My number is 617-842-2856, and I'm at jdechico@curry.edu.